Hey folks, Luke Hansen here with CompanyCam, and today I'm talking with Jim Johnson. He's the head coach at Roof Coach Pro. He helps roofing contractors win. Now, Jim's got a lot of experience, I think 20 years experience in the industry. He's done on the ground as a contractor, he's worked in technology, and now he's helping other businesses. And I really wanted to talk today about just a couple issues that I know are issues for every roofing contractor I've ever talked to. And they're hiring, training, and then acquiring and using technology. And so, Jim, I guess for starters, could you give us a little bit deeper of a background about yourself, and then we can kind of jump into these issues?
Sure, no problem. I've been in the contracting industry, like Luke said, for almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years in 5 days. Got into it with the storm restoration business. Learned from that, got into doing some retail work from 1998 through 2008. At that point, I created some software called Silver Lining that I was selling to contractor salespeople, helping them to draw roofs and do measurements and estimates and orders much quicker. That got purchased by AccuLynx, who I became the director of sales for 4.5 years. Grew them 300% per year. And saw a great need for people needing some coaching and some help. And so I resigned from AccuLynx and started Roof Coach Pro to help with that. Been doing that for the last 3.5 years to great success. We've had a lot of really good success stories.
Awesome, Jim. So starting from the top here, so background about me, my family owns a roofing company here in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I know I've kind of picked your brain about some things in the roofing industry. I reached out to my dad who runs the company. Two of my brothers are working there full time. And this hiring, training, and then using technology, that just kind of repeatedly came up in my conversations. And so starting from the top, when it comes to hiring, finding good employees, it could be sub-crews, what are the problems that you see contractors making on a regular basis, the mistakes that could be fixed, and what do you think most roofers need to know about hiring?
The first thing they need to know about hiring is that it is marketing and sales in our industry. We've got to market well to generate enough phone calls to have a large enough pool to select from whenever we're doing the actual hiring part of our process. And so I see a lot of times people putting really restrictive ads in whatever format that they're using, whether it's a newspaper or some type of digital media like monster.com. And it's really restrictive, so they only get a few phone calls and they wonder why they're not finding a large enough amount of salespeople, where if they were to treat their ad more as a marketing ad, that makes this ad sound like something that you could do, it fits you, you're going to generate a lot more calls, and you'll have a bigger pool to choose from.
So as kind of a practical step, what I'm hearing is probably you're seeing a lot of, can't do this, needs experience with this, sort of like a requirements list. And I feel like what you're saying is more of like selling the job to the potential employee, telling them the potential that they have and how enjoyable it'll be, how good of experience it will be. They can make a lot of money. Is that kind of what you're saying there? That you just changing the way you think about that application?
Yeah, none of us ever grew up and in high school thinking, man, I can't wait to get in the roofing business. It wasn't the exciting thing to do. We all wanted to be astronauts and athletes and things like that. But whenever somebody comes in to interview with your business, you've got to talk to them about more than just being a roofing company. Your culture, the opportunity that presents itself, how this can be a career, how it's something that you can actually be proud of to work in this industry, because we do help a lot of homeowners get their lives right again.
Gotcha. So I think that's really good advice. Are there some tactics you've seen, like whether it be a newspaper ad, Craigslist, using your current employees to reach out? Are there a set of kind of tangible things that you recommend doing when you're looking for, let's say, a new salesperson or a new operations guy? Like where would you start, or where would you advise your companies to start?
I actually still believe strongly in the newspaper. You'd be surprised how many phone calls we get from the newspaper and Craigslist, kind of that the paper format.
Yeah.
If you want to think of it that way. Craigslist is free, so that's a great resource to always use whenever you're out advertising. The newspaper, that's still something that people go to on Sundays and Wednesdays looking for jobs for whatever reason. Those seem to be the big days. And to keep our ads simple, put in the potential for pay, that training is provided, outgoing personalities are needed, maybe the ability to carry a ladder so people realize it, and maybe think about not actually advertising it as roofing salesperson. Think of it as maybe home inspector. That sounds a little bit different. It'll generate some interest and get some people to call you. And then you can get into more about what it is that you do once you have somebody on the phone.
So let's say I'm hiring a sales guy, a salesperson, okay? Are there a top 2 or 3, whether they be characteristics or, I'm curious to kind of, what do you think is the most important thing when evaluating a new potential sales hire? What are you looking for?
Luke, that's a great question. We actually coach on this quite a bit. We have a hiring process that we follow here at Roof Coach Pro. It's strong on the marketing side with the advertisements, which we've already talked about. And once we generate some interest, we send a questionnaire out to them to see if they'll actually do what we ask them to do, fill out some paperwork,
Gotcha, yeah.
Understand technology and email and how to use it, just some basic requirements to figure out if this person actually fits our culture and what we're going to do. But once I get them in and I'm doing some interviewing, we actually have several traits that we're looking for, but you asked for the top 2. I'm really looking for work ethic. Number 1, what is their work ethic? And we have some questions that we've designed to bring that out without directly asking. A lot of people say, hey, do you consider yourself a hard worker? Well, who says no to that?
You're at the job interview telling them you're a lazy bum. I mean, that's not that's
right.
not going to happen.
You've got to be a little bit smarter than that whenever you interview. So you ask questions about their past jobs and maybe what they've experienced before, giving you examples of how they've done their day and done their work. And you can start to read between the lines on their work ethic. And then the other one is perseverance, that ability or toleration to handle somebody saying no to you. Yeah. And we'll usually do something along the lines of telling somebody in an interview that we don't agree with them and what their point of view is, see if they stand up for themselves and stick to it and their point of view, or if they just kind of cower down and go with our.
Interesting. I feel like almost like a general positivity could roll into that a little bit, into the perseverance aspect. That so maybe you get turned down. Maybe you get turned down 5 times in a row. And this idea that you still feel like you're going to sell the next one. Just that you see, just tell some people have that they're not.
It's kind of the old saying, that no got me one more closer to yes.
Yeah.
And having that kind of attitude, like, boy, I got that one out of the way. I'm going to get a yes here in a few minutes. And having that kind of attitude. There's several more traits that we're looking for whenever we're doing hiring. That we get into our coaching about, because it's not just can a guy talk good. I mean, there's a lot of guys that look good and sound good, and then we hire them and we wonder why they fail with us. It's because we haven't done enough investigation into the traits that fit our company. And what we do as contractors, we're a little bit of a different bird. So we've got to interview for those traits and score those guys and figure out, hey, does this guy fit what we do or not? I don't see nearly enough of that in our industry.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So let's say we've hired someone. We've got them, and I tell you what, I wanted to move on to training there, but I want to wait a second and talk about kind of we talked more about the sales side and finding sales people and what we're looking for there. But that's kind of probably not even half the business. The other half is you got to do the work. And you got to find the crew to do the work, and you got to trust that your crew is going to do a good job. You got to keep an eye on them. I'm interested in some good, what are some mistakes you see guys making regularly when finding sub crews and then managing sub crews? Because I know there's a lot of variables there, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of that, and I'm really interested to get some of your insight on that.
Well, sub crews are tough. That is a thing that has, in our industry over the last 5 years or so, become a little bit more difficult. There's more difficult rules for, immigrants to come in and do work. The laws have kind of changed a little bit on what a subcontractor is or isn't and how much control you can have over them. And so that has become more difficult. Once again, running ads that are interesting and make people want to call you, providing opportunity, not being so restrictive. Everything is always so restrictive, and we don't really know much about somebody until we get them in front of us. One of the neat little tricks that we've learned is, in our industry, we have a lot of Latinos that do the work. And going around to the Latino churches in your market and speaking to the pastors of those churches and saying that, hey, we have some opportunity available. If you have some people that are in that field, send them to us. We'll take care of them. There's the old tactics of going to the supplier and meeting some crews and stuff like that. But I kind of find that a little bit too much going after somebody else's guy. And I don't really believe in that a whole lot. I'd rather go get them in a different way and a different fashion. The other thing is, there are cities, especially when you're dealing with storm damage and you have this real large change in volume, you start to run short of supply of crews. Think about advertising in other cities that are cities that do get damaged but may not have damage that year, and these guys are starting to get desperate for work. We can interview them and bring them in and see if we can get them working there in our locale.
Well, I really like that idea of going to the local church. I mean, that's very clever. That just, you feel like you kind of get someone who could speak to, even just meeting someone in that context would almost set up a different kind of relationship with that crew than if you bumped into them at the supplier or if they just responded to a random ad. You're almost sort of part of their community at that point. You're not fully involved in it, but that is just really. Did you think
that really is that kind of is the goal with your crews, is to be involved with them and their community and their families. One of the things that we did on a consistent basis every single year, twice a year, Memorial Day and Labor Day, we brought all the crews out to my place. We'd usually have 300 or 400 guys there, and we'd have a big barbecue. We'd shoot trap. We'd do all kinds of games and things like that, and get to know their families and be even more than just, hey, show up, here's your order, and go to work. Making sure that when they're out on the job, you asked this question earlier, what do you do once they're working? When they're out on the job, care about them. Bring them a 5-gallon pail of not just water, but bring some Gatorade. We had 5-gallon igloo pails in a storeroom at our office. Every sales guy would have access to one. We had Gatorade packets. Guys would bring them out. We'd tell them to bring them lunch 2 or 3 times a week. These guys are working their butts off, and if we take care of them, they're going to work for us, work for us forever.
Yep, we do that. So my family roofing company, White Castle Roofing, we'd have all the guys out and we'd do paintball a couple times a year. So every crew would be a team and we'd face off. It was a lot of fun.
It's fantastic.
And it works, it is really nice because you really getting to know people outside of that work context. I mean, it's the way that every insurance guy treats you. They want to take you golfing and they want to, they want to build that relationship because it really matters. So that's enough about hiring. Let's move over to training. So we've hired a sales guy. We're working with a crew. Starting from the sales side, what are kind of the same thing? What are some key thoughts on training, on getting that guy up to speed fast and feeling like you can trust him out in the field to represent your company?
That one's actually pretty simple. We do, like I said, we do coaching every single day, and it's repetitive. Almost every single company, I would say 98% of the companies that we work with, have really no training program other than, hey, go ride with this veteran, listen to what that veteran has to say, copy what he has to say, and then you start doing that. And that's kind of the traditional training program in our industry because we don't take it to that next level. And so having a designed training program that works on the basics first and just understanding terminology. A lot of us go after veteran salespeople, which those veteran salespeople, in my opinion, in most cases have gotten to a level where they expect certain things. And I would rather hire a new guy, train him from the ground up, give him all the roofing terminology, sales techniques, our presentation, and having a presentation that a guy can use. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
Especially in the beginning. Imagine when you start, you're listening to a guy, you can only remember 10% of what he has to say. And then you go out there and you fumble around until experience takes over and you start to gain a little bit of success. Where if you had a presentation to follow, it would keep you on track with the things that you need to say and the order in which you need to say them. Whether you used it in detail each and every time is not really important. Just knowing that that order leads to that sale.
Gotcha. That's good stuff. Is there any training that you would do with a sub crew? I mean, you hire a crew, you want to hire a crew that knows how to roof a house or commercial building. But I imagine there's some really good things you can do to set expectations and to kind of get that relationship going in the right direction when you start. I'm wondering how you think about that.
Well, in our offices, we had a storage area, and in that storage area, we had a little roof built, okay? And so if a crew wanted to come to work for us, we had a little bit of step flashing on there, some drip edge, underlayment, shingles, all the key things that we were really concerned about. We even had a little chimney on there and how we wanted to have it flashed. And so a crew would come in, and we would test them. We want to, re-roof this little roof right here. Here's some shingles. Tear that one off. Show us how you're going to prep it. I imagine that there's bushes and stuff here, and we'd just let them run with it. And then we would make those suggestions as we go. We want our drip edge cut this way. We want our flashing installed that way, so that they knew what our expectations were. And then we had a list of those expectations that they would sign off on. And we also had project managers, whether they're your salesperson or maybe somebody that you have hired as a project manager to ensure quality. They knew the process, and those first few roofing jobs, they were on site the entire process to make sure that these guys got into our rhythm.
Yep.
And it became very successful for us.
That's a great idea. I love the test roof. How big was it? Like maybe a square?
It was about 2 squares.
Okay.
So it wasn't real big, but it was big enough to get the idea.
Yeah.
Especially simple things like cutting drip edge. People do it different ways, and we really wanted ours cut in a very specific way. We didn't want the mitered corners. We wanted the bent corners so that there was no opening there. A lot of different things that we were really particular.
Yeah.
We knew that we had a warranty on these. We were going to stand behind that warranty.
Yep.
We weren't just going to roof and run away.
Absolutely. So last thing here, we've talked about hiring, we've talked about training. I want to talk a little bit about technology. So, technology is my passion. I left White Castle Roofing, started CompanyCam, and I love technology. I've noticed from talking with a lot of companies now about technology that for a lot of people, especially in the roofing industry, it's kind of scary. It's something that the idea of switching, even for me, I love technology, and the idea of switching to a different project management software or switching to AccuLinks or something kind of terrified me because there's so much unknown. You have what you got. But I'm curious, from how do you coach companies to think about technology and then to try to implement it across their company?
Well, there's just a few things you have to consider when you're looking at technology. Number one, does it save you time? If it saves you time, that's a bonus, and we want to make sure that anything that we do with technology saves us time, makes us money, and helps us communicate better. All of those things are going to make for a better experience for our salespeople, our production staff, and our customer. So if it doesn't meet those 3 criteria, don't do it. So that's kind of the basics of it. And then as you start to say, hey, yes, this is the one that works for me, for whatever reason, you have to be its champion. You have to believe in it, and you have to literally install it from A to Z and make it part of what you do. At AccuLinks, when I was there, we had a little saying, if it's not an AccuLinks, it doesn't exist. And so you had to have that mentality for the software to work. I'm a big believer in what CompanyCam does and how it shares its photos and how it's almost like an Instagram for your company. I think it's really cool that I can see live what's happening out in the field and give it instant feedback on it. It's one of the reasons why we suggest you guys quite a bit, is because it does save you a tremendous amount of time and improves your communication greatly.
You're hired.
Office and your customer.
You can start tomorrow. We'll get you a list. You're calling. You can, we'll start you with the hard ones. No, but I appreciate that, and that's what we want to do. I tell people all the time, if the whole point of this is to make your job easier and save you time, and so it has to do that for you, and we think it does for everyone. But there's no point, like, I don't want to give you something that just adds another thing, because there's plenty of things. Trust me, even now in the software business, there's plenty of things, and we can always add a new little tool that helps us do this little, tiny thing over here. And at some point, you have to kind of decide, how important is this?
That's why we've taken the training. I'm a technology guy too. I dig it. I love it. I think it really does do those things that I look for, which is save time, make you money, and help you communicate better. And one of those areas you asked me about earlier was training, and that's why we took ours to technology, where we can make training available 24/7, 365 days a year, so guys can get better at what they do. Technology can give us a huge advantage in those areas to help us grow and scale our companies in a way we never could before.
Yep. So one thing I wonder about, now there's so many places where your company can gain visibility. Your website matters. People are on social. A lot of people still advertise on billboards, but you pull up to a stoplight, you look at the person next to you, they're not looking at a billboard, they're looking at their phone. And it's thinking of where, from a company's marketing perspective, I'm wondering where you feel like we should be putting our resources. Should we be, how important is my website? How important is my presence on social media? How important is, me being found on Google? It all kind of matters, but I'm curious, like, if you recommend a kind of a big holistic strategy, or how you encourage your companies to think about this.
It really depends on the company. How technology savvy you are. It depends on how much of that you're going to take on. I'm a strong believer still to this day in having a great website. That's the most important thing, because everything else will drive from that. So if you have a great website and do your SEO portion of that correctly, and you get into doing Google AdWords and pay-per-click and things like that, where you're generating some interest in people, driving people to your site, you can capture that information and start to become more of a marketer through email marketing and staying in contact with your customers. Now, you don't want to go out there and email market people, hey, there's a 10% discount on roofing this week. You want to market them on valuable things. So maybe you have a do-it-yourself newsletter, and you market to them on valuable things for do-it-yourselfers at home. So how to pressure wash a driveway correctly, how to sand and reseal a deck, and some of those things that you may not do, but that you can send out a newsletter on that people see as valuable. Mm-hmm. The more that they see that you're providing them value, you're going to be the first thing that comes to mind whenever they do need a roof or some siding or whatever else it may be that you do exterior.
And there's just credibility there. And a little tip for any roofer building a website. I've built a handful of websites. Almost all of them were complete garbage, and that was because you try to say everything you can in the visible area that people land on, and that is exactly wrong. You don't need to say everything about your company and say everything that you do. When someone comes to your website, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to call you? Do you want them to get a free estimate? Do you want them to, see some of your projects? Usually you want to get a lead out of that, and so you need to build the entire thing thinking of what do you want them to do. And that's just I've made that mistake so many times, and it took me so long. You read the marketing, you read the experts on how to do it, and you still do it wrong until you finally internalize that you don't have to just splatter everything about your company. And I look at a lot of roofing company websites now. Every time someone signs up, we kind of see, who is this company? And some of them are really fantastic. A lot of them aren't, and that really matters. I know for our generation, under 40, that website says it's not that you expect your roofing company to be incredible at web development or making amazing websites, but it says something to me about the company that they at least care about trying, and that they know that that's important. I mean, if I go to hire a plumber or an electrician or someone to cut my grass even, I don't care if they're good at making a website, but I want their website to at least look like they tried, and like it's something that they understand matters. Because to people, kind of the younger generation, I don't know, to me, as you get older, younger becomes, someone 5 years older than you is younger. But that's my little rant about websites.
That's a great point. I mean, that's the attitude. What do you want your website to do? If you want it to generate leads, then you need to design it around that. If you want it more as an asset and a sales and marketing tool for your salespeople and for people whenever you meet them as a customer, then that's a whole different process. I'm more about generating leads. I want it to get somebody to call. But I've seen both versions work, and I've seen them both do very well. You still got to have that stuff there for that engineer type mentality person, so they can go in and find the detail about you. But that first page should be all about what it is that you want them to do.
Absolutely. Well, hey Jim, I'll tell you what, we're approaching 30 minutes here, so I want to let you go. And this has been great. This has been super helpful, and I really think that any roofing contractor watching this is going to at least be able to grab a few things out of here that they can think about in their business. If someone wants to know more about Roof Coach Pro and how they can work with you or access some of your resources, where do they go? What would be a first step for them to come and find you?
They can go to roofcoachpro.com. We've got a website there. It has right on there what we want you to do whenever you come in.
Yeah.
It's got a button that says join for free, and you can join our website for free. We have some sample material in there where they can get some good information, take it right to work that moment after watching it. Those free memberships get them the ability to join our weekly sales meeting that we call the Weekly Huddle, where we're training every single week and doesn't cost anybody anything. If they want to step it up a little bit and get access to the hundreds of hours of training that we have on there, we do have our All-Star and our MVP membership. Anybody that's watching this today, if they'll email me at headcoach@roofcoachpro, I will send them a discount code and save them some money on their membership. We also provide one-on-one coaching whenever we work hand in hand with a company, so those opportunities are out there. Like I said, just shoot me an email at headcoach@roofcoachpro.com, and we'll get you helped out.
Awesome. Jim, thank you so much for joining me, and let's do this again in the future.
All right. Sounds great, Luke. Appreciate it.
See you later.